All right. I'd like to start off by saying Barak Tehawa, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem, Rachakwadash. All right. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is The Internet Does Our Heavy Lifting. Now, this lesson comes through the inspiration of a video I was watching a little while ago. Elder Pastor was doing a video on Ezekiel 37 chapter. And he mentioned, how pretty much in so many words, he said that the internet does our heavy lifting, which that's something Elder Apostle Gabar says all the time, that the internet does our heavy lifting. And it's heavy how that is because, it's humanly impossible today, to go around the four corners of the globe to teach everywhere where Israelites are at. Yahushua said it best. Let's go real quick to Matthew 10. And I just have some scriptures that were rolling around in my head, when I was listening to the apostle. And just want to do this video and whatever precepts scripture gives me, I'll feed you with it. And, I'm not going to be able to check the chat because I'm, upstairs in the room. So I'm not in front of the main screen, the TV, so I could watch the comments. So you brothers that's got those wrenches, you already know what to do. I believe it's in Matthew the 10th chapter. Let's see. How does it go? Yeah, I should have known that was going to give me a whole lot. Nope. That's not it. Let me try just this. I know this is going to really even be worse. But here we go. I was in the right chapter, just didn't have the right verse. Matthew chapter 10 and verse 23. But when they persecute you in this city, flee you into another. For verily I say unto you, you shall not have gone over the cities of Israel till the Son of Man be come. So pretty much we wouldn't be able to cover physically all of these different regions where Jake is at, and pretty much, you have Israelites that have literally been scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. And this is why the Most High gave Esau the technology of the internet, which is nothing more than the Urim and the Thummim, to put this technology out there so that the truth can be pushed to the four corners of the earth. And this is, the internet has been a great technology for Esau, but it's also been a part of his undoing, because through the internet you have a lot of truth coming out, especially dealing with the Israelites. And that's why you see all these different anti-Christians coming against the truth and trying to stop it, because they see the influence that these videos have had and the impact that these videos have had on Israel out here, these Jakes out here that were lost. As long as they were in the chains of their mind in Christianity, they were good. As long as they were subservient to Jesus, the other white meat, they were good. But once they started up to finding out they were Israelites, that's bad. See, Esau doesn't like that. So that's why the Lord created the internet. And now these devils are trying to make all different type of rules and regulations to, stifle the word from going out. But it's too late. The word is already out, and there's nothing you could do to stop it. You know, the train already left out the station. Israelites all around the world are waking up. You have camps, even camps around the world, but the main deliverance and the main focus of the ministry would be here in America, Babylon the Great. So let's go. Let me just start off here, and you know what? No, let me go to the Apocrypha. Let's go to the book of Second Ezra, chapter 6. All right. Um, I was meditating too earlier how when the Lord first, when we were all in the world, when we were in the world before the Lord woke us up, when the Lord woke us up, you know, at first the truth it seemed very strange because it wasn't something we were used to. We were used to all of these other lies and religions that have been around for centuries. And when the truth came out, it was like a very strange thing. It was just like, it was like, it was, what's the word I could use? It brought joy, but then again, it was like strange. And the reason why was because we were going down the wrong way. And then when the Lord woke us up, we was just like, wow, it was just like one of the wow moments, but at first it was like, Chase, what did God doesn't love everybody? And, there was just a lot of lies that the world taught that everyone was embedded with, that when the truth came out, it was just like, wow. That's why there's a saying, truth is stranger than fiction. And it is true. It's stranger than fiction because most people in the world would be susceptible to believe a lie more than they would believe the truth. I think it was McLuhan, if I'm not mistaken. I forget his first name. He made a statement that, the only thing that needs to be hidden are little lies. The big lies are hidden by the incredulity of the people, the unbelief of the people, of the masses of the people. We even had a guy, Apostle Gabar and myself, when we had our business, we were working for this individual. We had his brother, we were talking to him, and pretty much we were breaking down to him about, the plans that are going on behind the scenes, so on and so forth. And he stated out of his mouth that even if they came and told me, I wouldn't believe it. So pretty much you already know the individual you're dealing with there. Out there teaching. And then eventually, when the of the internet started to really bloom, then eventually these started opening up. And social media platforms that started opening up, like YouTube, brought a whole nother perspective, a whole nother avenue to get this word out. The Israelites that are awoke now to who they really are, when they first heard it, it was like, you're dead sleep in the bed and it's dark in the room, and all of a sudden somebody like the light is messing with you. So that's how it was. And it was because we were going the wrong way and we were dead sleep. It says, and thine ear shall hear a word behind thee. Because if you hear something behind you, that means that you're going the wrong way. Right? Saying, this is the way, walk ye in it when you turn to the right hand and when you turn to the left, because that's when the moment that the truth was presented to us. All right? And the way that it was presented to the majority of you today now was through the invention of the internet. We call it the YouTube era. The brothers that came in during the YouTube era. You didn't have this back then. Everything was just hands-on. You heard it from word of mouth. You might have walked by a camp and seen it, and then it started to progress a little bit more because then you had public access, which was free, and you were able to, book certain times on there to push the word out, and that was like the beginning stages of the internet, but not quite, but then eventually it expanded to what you see today. And this, when the truth went, you could say mainstream for lack of better words, and it started to be pushed out on the through the internet, that's when it really started taking more and more, started to dig in more and more. And that's why you see so many Israelites waking up. And remember what Yahushua said, when you threw the net in, the net gathered of all sorts, some good, some bad. And what happened? Said the fishermen pulled over to the shore. Good, bad, he cast back into the sea. And that's why you see a lot of what's going on with the sifting. You have individuals that wake up, you have individuals that fall out. You have individuals that run in top speed, and all of a sudden they run out of gas. Then you have other individuals that have been grinding, in the trenches and are still around through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. All right. And it all happened through one of these avenues, whether you were walking down the street, back in the days, and you heard the brothers on the corner, you may have stopped and listened, or, you might have been on a job, and so you heard brothers that was awoke or knew that they were Israelites telling you, that you're an Israelite, and he started breaking scriptures down to you, or whether you were somewhere at a party or whatever you were doing, and all of a sudden someone started talking to you about the truth, and you're like, it brought a different light. But now today, the majority of Israelites that are woke today pretty much got it through the internet, and that was that was something that was very heavy that the Lord pushed out there. So let's go to 2nd Ezra 6, and I'm gonna start at 17, although the point is in 20, because 17, is the buildup. So it says 2nd Ezra 6:17, and it happened that when I had heard it, I stood up upon my feet and hearkened, and behold, there was a voice that spake, and the sound of it was like the sound of many waters. That's Yahushai's voice. And it said, behold, the days come that I will begin to draw nigh and to visit them that dwell upon the earth. Right. And when the Lord caused the men of the Lord, his prophets, to wake up, that was the beginning of this, of the Lord visiting the earth, because he was letting it be known by the prophets what was going to happen and what was going to go down. And that's when it was still, relatively small, and the avenues to get the word out weren't that many. So you had to physically go on the streets. We still go on the streets, physically go on the streets today, and we're supposed to. But back then, you didn't have all of the access to the technology that we have today. All right, so it was a slow grind. Nevertheless, it just kept that small mustard seed. And we'll begin to make inquisition of them be on the affliction of Zion shall be fulfilled. Right. So at the end, when the Lord is about to deliver us, turn back our captivity, the word and the prophets will be out here teaching this word and letting the world know what was going to go down prior to it. So when the internet came out, it really did some real serious heavy lifting, because no longer did you have to cross state lines, to go to different other, states, in America, or had to get passports or go overseas somewhere to teach the word, because the internet did the heavy lifting. It says, and when the world that shall begin to vanish away shall be finished. So the Lord gave America a certain period of time. When you go to Revelation 17, it paints the whole picture of how America came into being. And when America would come into being, that would be the beginning of their pretty much destruction, because it said the eighth will go into perdition, which means destruction. All right. So when this place was you know, failing, falling apart, that's when the truth started coming out. Because at the peak of everything, of America's domination to the world, you had a man by the name of Elder Abba Bivens that was out teaching. And he was a commandment. They go back to other men, that woke up to find out that they were Israelites, but everybody back then was following the small hats. And the Spirit jumped on the Elder Abba Bivens to go into the New Testament. And the Old Testament heads among Israel that don't deal with the New Testament is because they're following the small hats. Because the small hats don't believe that the Messiah came. That's why they don't touch the New Testament. Because they're right. He didn't come for them. He came for the Israelites. And they're not Israelites. And they know this. The higher ups, of course. All right. So we're at the point now where all of this is finished. And when Elder Abba Bivens, the Lord got him to get into the New Testament and started really preaching, about the New Testament and the coming of Yahushua and the 12 tribes. And then he started gathering men to him, which some of the main ones was King Masha, High Priest Arya, High Priest Shaikwa. And those are the three main men that continued on the legacy that we see today. All right. But back then they didn't have the internet. It was in the, you could say, infancy stage. All right. Then eventually, as time progressed, more brothers started coming in, others started falling out, and then you had the Great Awakening of the 90s, from 1990 on up, where Israel became very popular, and a lot of Jakes was coming, but it still wasn't reaching, around the world, Then eventually, the majority of those guys back in the 90s went back in the world. And then there was a spell of about 10 years where there was really nothing really going on, just teaching, grinding, boom, boom, boom. 2001, the Twin Towers came down, and that, was like, oh, snap, what's going on? But then it kind of just died back down. And then 2005, 2006, when YouTube was created, it was a slow progression. You have some Israelites going on there putting 30-second videos or 10-minute videos and talking about, if you want the rest of it, you got to buy it. But this was the beginning of the internet starting to do the heavy lifting. And from the moment that the Spirit had Great Millstone, his whole thing when we got on there, flooding with videos, boom, boom, sentiment the whole time. Because it went from you getting a 10-minute video from the other camps or 30-second video from the other camp to 50 parts, Great Millstone. And that was just like one camp, 50 different. So you had to chop all those up. Then it just kept building and building and building. You had the lives, and the brothers started waking up. Brothers started, went from not just watching the videos, but actually going out there, breaking grounds, being uncomfortable in their surroundings, being like, nervous because this is something new to them as it was to us. And brothers are getting arrested because in those different, states, they weren't used to the Israelites like they were used to us up here or up in the East Coast. So this was something new. So brothers were going through the rites of passage that other men went through, and they broke ground in the different states. Now the Israelite thing is everybody knows who the Israelites are. The police don't mess with them. Sometimes the cops will come out, hey, you brothers okay? And they'll help. But that's what helped push the internet. And then once those brothers started getting into it, then eventually they became elders and had men under them. And boom, as you see today, we're in 2025. So it says, and when the world that shall begin to vanish away shall be finished, then will I show these tokens, the books, which is the Bible, shall be opened before the firmament. What is the firmament? The ozone layer. What do you have up there? You have satellites. Those satellites beam signals. You have satellites on Earth, beam signals to satellites in heaven, space, and then those in turn broadcast many signals around the world to go to different places: Thailand, China, Australia, Japan, so on and so forth. And that's how, the word is spreading. It says, and they shall see all together. And that's why the people are sitting there watching videos. You got scoffers, mockers. Then you have the ones that are serious minded. Oh, like that is blown away by this message, because the world kept this hidden for a long time. So when you first woke up to it, it was strange, but then something in your spirit was like, I knew there was something. I just couldn't put my finger on it. I just felt like something was wrong, but no one ever explained it, because I couldn't put it into words. And that's what it was, who we are. This is the greatest kept secret in the world, who the Israelites are. You had the naked archaeologist, years ago on National Geographic, I believe it was. He did I think he did a series or just one documentary on who the 12 tribes are, the 10 lost tribes or the 12 tribes, something like that. And he mentioned everybody on the planet except for the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. It's like anybody else out there, pygmies can be Israelites. Moabites, some crocodile eating or whatever, they could be Israelites, but the Israelites can't be Israelites. And that's a part of not being reckoned among the nations. So that's what this truth is doing through the internet, helping to wake up Israelites around the world. But the Lord is only looking for the elect, mainly here in America, but you have elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. And this is what the internet is doing. It's doing a heavy work to grab these Israelites that are part of the elect. So Job 39:9 says, will the unicorn be willing to serve thee? Now the unicorn is a fictitious animal. They say it's a pony or a horse with a horn in it. No, that's not the unicorn does not exist. No, it's a myth. So when you read about the unicorn here, it's not talking about an actual animal. And then when you look at it, when you look at the word unicorn, it's one horn. All right. And that horn goes into what? The feed horn of the satellites. And you look at a feed horn in satellite dish. Let's try that. Oh my goodness. Hold on for a minute.
We did. Oh, we like it. I mean, no, so. Did I get got your phone? You got it, right? You got the code? I'm gonna send it to you. You send it to me. WhatsApp. I think got your phone. Oh, yeah.
Okay, Salaki for that. So as you can see here, this is a feed horn. Sometimes I'll have it, facing in, and sometimes they'll have it in the actual dish facing out, like you see here. And this is where the signals are broadcasted from. All right, so it says satellite dish feed horn. So this is a feed horn. This is what, pushes the signals out. All right, let's see if we go to images. Here you go. See this one here? This one is protruding from this dish. That's the feed horn. That's that horn. That's the unicorn, one horn. All right. and it's used for broadcasting signals around the world. Then you have satellites, right? You have satellites. Let's see, feed horn satellite. Let's try that. Feed horns. Let's see. Okay. Here goes another one here. Then you have the satellites that are orbiting. Let's see something. Orbiting satellites. Orbiting satellites. Let's see what comes up. There you go. And as you can see, they have also horns, which are the feed horns. Boom. There we go. Let me see what comes up. All right, get rid of that. Let's do it like this. There we go. That's the feed horn right there. All right, and that's why signals are broadcasted back and forth between the ones up there in the firmament, as we read, and the ones on the earth, as we saw, in the other pictures, as you see here on the earth. All right, and that's how the signals are broadcasted. That's how you're able to be in Japan, or to be able to be in Taiwan, or to be able to be in Singapore, or be able to be, in England, or whatever the case may be, and see these videos broadcasted right in the comfort of your living room, or your bedroom, or wherever you have your computer at, or wherever you have your smartphone at. It made it to the point now with technology, you could carry it with you. You could do lessons on the go. You're no longer restricted to just doing lessons at the house. Because when YouTube was first established, you had to go actually film with a camera, then take that and and chop it up. Now it's like you could just go live, do a 20-hour video, and it'll just go right up, on YouTube. And then you have, with certain accounts, you can actually, broadcast from YouTube and other platforms. You see? So that's pretty much it there. So let's get rid of this. Let's go back. Matter of fact, let's just hit that. So let's go back here. Let's read this again. 2 Ezra 6:20. And when, I'm sorry, we were in Job 39. Job 39:9. Will the unicorn be willing to serve thee, or abide by thy crib? Right, because that's what the feed horn does. It serves, and it's what's doing the heavy lifting. All right. Canst thou bind the unicorn with his band and the furrow? Now the furrow are the lines that are made in the soil to receive seed, right? Or will the harrow the valleys after thee? And the harrow is what would come behind it after the seed was planted, and supposed to be there to help, into the soil and land in good ground. That's why Yahushua spoke about the parable of the sower seed, because sometimes the seed would fall to the side. It wouldn't fall where it was supposed to, so it wouldn't grow. Let's look up this word furrow real quick. It's not going to really give you much on this one. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to grab that and show you so you can see. All right, furrow, a long, narrow trench made in the ground by a plow, especially for planting seeds or for irrigation. See, and this is symbolic for the Lord using the internet as a way to spread the seed, which is the seed is the word of the Most High. Let's get that real quick. Let's go to Luke chapter 11 and verse 8. It says, not 8, is it? Thought it was Luke 11 and 8. Oh, let's see. Or is it 4? Let me see something. Luke 8:11. So I had 11. It was 8:11. I had it backwards. Luke 8:11. Now the parable is this: the seed is the word of the Most High. So that seed would do what? You would take the seed and put it in the furrow, You see, these are the furrows, those long lines, and you notice how they're straight. Elder Pastor always goes into that. When you had the ox, pushing through here, they had to make sure that it was straight. You couldn't veer to the side, because then that would be no good. Because this served as a place you actually drop the seed in, but also it also served as an irrigation, because you had to water it. And if it was off going that way, then the water wouldn't get all the way through the furrow. All right. So let's get rid of this. Okay. Let's go back. Now you have the word harrow, or will he harrow the valleys after thee? This was a contraption, that now Esau has, the modern day ones. You have the word shaddad, right? Which means to harrow. It doesn't really give you what harrow is. Let's get rid of that real quick. Let's go show you harrow, and then I want to show you something over here also. Harrow, right? Images. There you go. See, that's the harrow. It comes behind, a seeding efficiency game. See, so it comes behind, and then it opens up, removes the bad shit. The clods and the different things that will not allow the seed to go into the ground. All right. And you will have to go straight. You can see there, right? So when we go back, matter of fact, let me type in harrow definition so you can see. It says an implement consisting of a heavy frame set with teeth or tines, which is dragged over plowed land to break up clods, remove weeds, and cover seeds. See? So that's what the internet is doing. It's making straight the paths. And then in the parable, there's one word in the Greek that says before you actually, the king would actually go somewhere, you would have servants go before him and make sure that the roads were clean, that there was no debris in the road, there was no stones or boulders or whatever in the way. So they had to go before the king and remove that. And that's what we're doing. We're removing the road, the stones and the debris and the fallen trees and all that out of the way, making the way perfect. How Shai comes back. And that's what is doing. All right, so let's get rid of this. Now go back to in the Hebrew Shaddad. You come down here, right? It says to be straight. See? And that's what the truth is doing, is straightening things out. All the lies are straightening it out. Because back in 2nd Ezra 6, right? When we jump down to the 28th verse, it says, as for faith it shall flourish, corruption shall be overcome, and the which has so long without fruit shall be declared. And how is it being declared? In these times, mainly by the internet. It says to tend straight to the mark, to lead straight, right? And that's what this truth does. It leads us straight. That's why it says turn not to the left or to the right. When you turn around, keep following straight. That's why Yahweh said, if I knock and you answer, I'm going to come in and sup with you. Me and my Father will come and sup with you. You see? So that you can continue on that road. So going back. So let's read this again. It says, canst thou bind the unicorn with his band in the furrow? Yeah, because those signals are what's going out to push or propagate the seed so that the seed can enter into the mind of the Israelites, the ones that are part of the elect. Now, when we go to Baruch, right, this is how the great sifting is happening. This is how the Lord is gathering the elect from among these different nations. So 2nd Ezra 6, Baruch 5:5, it says, arise, O Jerusalem, and stand on high, and look about toward the east, right? Because that's our home. We're looking towards the east now. And behold, thy children gather from the west unto the east. And that's where we're being gathered from, the west, unto the east by the word of the Holy One, rejoicing in the remembrance of the Most High. So how in the hell are we supposed to be able to go to the four corners of the earth with a handful of men and teach in every city where Israelites are at? It's impossible. You will destroy yourself. Just like Elder Pastor told, Yashawan back in the days, the old Yashawan from the Brooklyn camp, that, because he told him he wanted to go out. I believe he said every day. And the pastor said, no, you shouldn't do that because you're going to destroy yourself and your men. And he went out there, and I think a couple of weeks later, he said that he was having chest pains and all of that. His men were all messed up. You see? So it's impossible to go to every place around the world where Israelites are at. And Yahushua said you wouldn't do it. But like the general, captain, glorified 12 tribes worldwide. No, we're gonna do it. They're gonna defy the Lord, and do that. Never mind the internet. Never mind that the Lord said that the internet was used to help us. They pushing that aside because Bishop Nathaniel, that's God of the IUIC. Oh, there you go, man. It's always talking about the bishop. Keep the bishop's name out of your mouth. So it says, Job 39:10. Canst thou bind the unicorn in his bands in the furrow, or will he harrow the valleys after thee? Will thou trust him because his strength is great? Right. And you see the strength of this. Look at the amount of Israelites that have woken up by this technology of the internet. Or will thou leave thy labor to him? Right, because this is what we do. That's why Elder Apostle Gabar always says the internet does our heavy lifting. All we have to do is do the lessons. And the internet takes care of the rest, because that's what the Spirit of the Lord set it up for. He set it up for this very moment, for the prophets to prophesy, and for the words of the prophets of Yahweh Bashem El Shai to go out to the four corners of the earth. Then the Lord will bring, these words to pass, because his words don't go out void. Will thou believe him that he will bring to thy barn? Right, because that was the purpose. You go plant, right? Or you break up the ground, right? You plant the seeds, you cover it up, water it, boom, boom, keep an eye on it so that it can bring forth what? Fruit. So that's what the internet is doing. It's gathering the seed of Israel, but it's only gathering the elected nation of Israel. And that's what the internet was set up for. Now, let's go from there to Deuteronomy 33 and 13. And of Joseph, he said, blessed of the Lord, Yahweh Bashem El Shai, be his land. That's dealing with the land of Puerto Rico. You have also Cuba, because Ephraim and Manasseh, that's so-called Puerto Rican, so-called Cubans. For the precious things of heaven, and for the dew, and for the deep that couches beneath. Now, we're just going to go straight to the point, verse 17, because you had Joseph, that had two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, or Manasseh and Ephraim. All right, was the youngest, but Ephraim became the. Says his glory is like the firstling of his bullock, meaning strong, the strength of vigor, the strength of youth, right? And his horns, which is what? Back to the unicorn horns or the internet, the feed horns, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns. All right, that's the feed horn, right? It says with them, meaning with the internet, he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth. And we're over here in America at the ends of the earth. Bear with me 1 second. Yeah, so America, this is the ends of the earth. And it's no coincidence that this is where the northern kingdom came to. Because at the end, the Lord first brought the northern kingdom here, and eventually would bring the southern kingdom here, because this would be the place, of the fulfillment of the great multitude coming together. And that's the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. That's why the main threat, to America and the people that came through the border are what? The northern kingdom. They ain't kicking out, all of the other nations that came through those borders. They're focusing mainly on the so-called Latinos, that the so-called Latinos that came through there. And they even, talking about, deporting Gad. The nerve of these fucking devils, right? It says, and his horns are like the horns of a unicorn. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth, right? And that's why you have a lot of brothers that do Spanish videos. The Bishop Sakuran and myself used to do Spanish videos, a bunch of Spanish videos back in the days. But that spirit hopped off of us and hopped on those brothers. You have some brothers out there that don't even do videos in English. They just do videos in Spanish. The Lord got them locked into doing this videos in Spanish. Do you have, brothers in Bolivia? I remember they, I'm not sure if those brothers are still there. You have brothers in Bolivia. You have brothers in Peru. You have brothers all over the place. Brothers in Mexico teaching the word. But the reason why you don't see a great gathering in those different regions around the world, even up to so-called Europe and Australia and all that, is because the main focus of salvation is here in America. You just happen to have prophets and elect around the world of Israel. It says they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh, right? And this is who the Lord is using at the forefront. You have Ephraim, you have Judah, so-called Negroes, Ephraim, so-called Puerto Ricans. No coincidence that during the 60s and the great revolutions that were going on back then, you had Judah and Ephraim. Judah was at the head, and Ephraim was the arrow. And anything, when you go, of course, if you weren't on the East Coast, you may not understood that. But on the East Coast, specifically in New York, Jersey and all that, but specifically in New York, so-called Negroes and so-called always had some type of vibe going together. Yeah, you had differences, you had, racism and all that bullshit, but you also had those that got along and wasn't with that bullshit. Why? Because these were the beginning stages of the Lord bringing the so-called Negroes and the so-called Puerto Ricans back together, because those are the two main tribes that's going to bring back the nation of Israel through the spirit and power of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua through his Holy Spirit. And that's what this internet is for. And the spirit made it to where it was free. Now you can pay now, they trying to, but it's free. The Lord made it that way. And we're getting free airtime through the spirit to push this word out. So push it out. Let's go from there. Let's go to Psalms, the 19th chapter. And I'm going to probably end it right there, because the main point is made. Psalms 19:1, the heavens declare the glory of the Most High, and the firmament show his handiwork, right? And we're reading about that in 2 Ezra 6. And that's why the Lord gave this devil the technology of the internet, the satellites on earth, satellites in the heavens. And the Lord gave this devil the technology to be able to raise these big, heavy ass, with however many tons these satellites and all that weigh, and be able to get them up there, up in the heavens, for the purpose of pushing his word throughout the four corners of the earth. And you got to remember, when these devils are doing this stuff, this stuff, it just wasn't something that they were able to do. They just said, okay, we're going to do this. And then the next day they were doing it. No, it took trial and error. It took a lot of hard calculations and, sleepless nights and, worries and, a lot of stress to get these things going. but eventually they got it going. It says day unto day uttereth speech, right? Because you could hear it. Just like right now, you can hear this lesson, you can hear another lesson. You could probably be watching one lesson and have another lesson playing in the background. It says, and night unto night showeth knowledge, and that's what this truth does. It shows knowledge, and this knowledge is captured, the audio and the video, by the internet, the feed horns, and are being broadcasted from one location to many locations. Like if a billion people were watching right now, this video right here would be viewed by a billion people. This video right here, or any brother's video, any apostles or bishops video, if the whole world watched that had internet at the same time, you will have 8 billion plus hits just from that one video. Like when we did the Rasta Skank video, that thing went viral a couple of times. It says, there is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Why? Because brothers speak different languages. You have brothers that speak Spanish. You have brothers that speak Creole, and you have you have brothers that speak Dutch. Sometimes the brothers out there in the Netherlands, they do lessons in Dutch. You even have brothers that do sign language lessons. For people that are deaf. And the word is everywhere. It says their line is going out through all the earth. Why? Because the Lord gave this devil that technology, and their words to the end of the world. In them he have set a tabernacle for the sun. The sun is a representation of wisdom. And that tabernacle for the sun is the internet, set up and established for the purpose of gathering the elect of the nation of Israel, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, that's Yahushai, and rejoices as a strong man to run a race. Right, because it's a continuous circuit. You could watch the same video 100 times back to back, or you could watch many videos. Forth is from the end of the and is circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. Right, because this word is going out. There's no excuses. No one can say they didn't hear. You have mainstream individuals, so-called celebrities, talking about the Israelites. Everybody knows about this. This is why you have so many so-called Christians now trying to come up against it. And poor Vocab, he was so hurt when he went to New Mexico, to that little city with the residency of 2,000 people, and you had Israelites there, and that hurt him to the core. He might have ate a whole Sicilian pizza by himself with pepperoni on it that day because he was so hurt. He didn't see not one, so-called Jehovah's Witness or Baptist or anybody out there. But the Israelites are out there. And how did them brothers learn about this truth? Through the internet. The heavy lifting of the unicorn. Not by brothers actually going to these different places, because it's humanly impossible. You would have to have 1 billion people in your organization to even make a mark or a dent, and even that might not be enough. You see? So that's why the internet does the heavy lifting. And the Lord gave it to Esau just for this very purpose. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say, Shalom.